meeting to order. First thing we'll do, I'll make an announcement. This is the meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Agency Board of Directors. We'll be conducting in compliance with Nebraska statutes of the Open Meetings Act. For reference, the Open Meeting Act is posted on the west wall of the boardroom. Do not tear that act down. That could actually bring trouble for you. So is that kind of a deep shock? Did you get it?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I don't like deputies.
Anyway, sorry. Liz, would you like to take roll call?
Mayor John Ewing,
Jacqueline Morrison.
Commissioner Mike Friend,
Here.
Mayor Rusty Hyde,
Here.
Mayor Doug Kindig,
Here.
Commissioner David Klug,
Here.
Councilmember Don Rowe,
Here.
Supervisor Brian Shea,
Here.
Mayor Jill Sudak, Mayor Angie Woodquest.
Here.
Agenda item D is approval of the agenda. If I can have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second clue.
Any questions? Liz?
Morrison,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Hyde,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shea,
Aye.
Woodquest. Yes. Klug, or Kindig.
Yes. Agenda item C is the board minutes. If I could have a motion to approve from the December 11th, 25 meeting.
Second.
And are there any questions? Liz?
Morrison,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Hyde,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shea,
Aye.
Woodquest.
Yes.
Kindig.
Yes. Agenda item D, agency reports. Mike?
Sure. So as is tradition here in January, we have some new faces on the MAPA board. And so I'd like to welcome Supervisor Brian Shea from Potawatomi County, who's joining us on the MAPA board as the designated recipient. And then Supervisor Jones, who's going to be our alternate, new to the Potawatomi County board, but I am certain getting up to speed very quickly with everything in county government. We also have Douglas County's new representative. We have Commissioner Mike Friend, who's sat in on a number of meetings over the past year, but welcome to the MAPA board.
Thank you.
And then we'll have Council Bluffs Mayor Shudak as well joining us on the MAPA board going forward as well. Some new faces, welcome aboard, and we'll hope you find this meeting exciting, but also great opportunity to just work amongst your peers here on the MAPA board and supporting the work that we do here at MAPA. A couple of updates. So in early February, we have the National Conference of Regions. So it's hosted by the National Association of Regional Councils, which is our national association, kind of the main overarching one. And, you know, in February, we go out to DC. It's the policy conference. They're talking a lot about, you know, what's happening within federal government across, you know, community development, EPA, transportation. And we usually hear quite a few updates from the administration on, you know, what's specifically happening around, you know, water infrastructure, broadband. And it's a great opportunity, you know, for us because you know, staff goes, but also board members go on an annual basis. And there's going to be, you know, board members and leadership from other regional councils from around the country there. And so we find it's a great opportunity to kind of find those peers that are working on similar issues. You know, you might have an emergency management issue and you might find somebody who is giving a presentation from a regional council that is deeply involved in that, or regional 911. So we find it to be kind of a very good conference. We also pair this with our legislative visits. So we go and do visits with most of our delegation. We have all 3 Nebraska Congress people, so we don't quite get all of them, but there's you. Welcome.
Apologies.
No, you're okay. So we'll be going February 1st through 4th, and a number of board members attending. So we've got Mayor Kindig, Mayor Shudak, come right on up. You get to join us. And Jacqueline Morrison and Mayor Ewing will be joining us as well. So excited for that, and we'll be sure to bring an update back in February. Legislative updates. Obviously, we're in session in both Iowa and Nebraska. You know, just a couple of notes as they relate to MAPA. Both states in the agency budget proposals have zeroed out the funding that comes to MAPA either by virtue of being an economic development district or a council of governments. And this has been happening the last few years, but it's just of a note. In Nebraska, there is a bill submitted to restore that funding to last year's level. In Iowa, there's bills kind of around that and in reinvesting in COGS about some of the shared service models and things that are a big topic of discussion in Iowa. But just also know that we're monitoring bills kind of related to a number of different things from local control, economic development, land use policy, traffic safety and infrastructure funding. We did write a comment letter on, I believe it was LB 951 here in Nebraska that was about, the extraterritorial jurisdiction residents getting voting rights in municipal elections. And we highlighted, the role that the ETJ plays in kind of intergovernmental planning, but then also MAPA's role in redistricting and how important equal representation is in all of that. So highlighted those issues and our concerns about that proposal, but we monitor all these things on an ongoing basis. So if there's issues that you think impact us, things you're hearing in your own groups around either state house, please let us know. We want to make sure that we can support those in whatever way we can.
On 951, Mike, I'll just add the state election commissioners testifying in support. Which,
That's interesting.
to let someone outside of your city limits vote in your city elections, it doesn't make sense. It's a reversal of the saying that's been around since the Boston Tea Party, that it's a representation without taxation.
Yeah.
But the election commissioners voting in support because we're not 100% sure where that bill originated from, but the whispers in the hallway are it originated from the state attorney general.
Well, it is a strange proposal. So
Yeah.
we highlighted we highlighted the strangeness. A few other MAPA updates. We'll just kind of continually provide some things that we're working on. We highlighted this last month, but it's worth reiterating. We're going to be kicking off a regional freight plan. This is the first time that MAPA has taken this on. Our states have recently had a new requirement to do their own state freight plans through the infrastructure bills. But this is an opportunity for us to provide kind of that regional context across all modes of freight, so highways, rail, water freight. There's been kind of a resurgence of interest in our region and kind of north of us as well in that. And just really thinking through what are those strategies both within the urban area, but then in outlying areas as well. We're right on the edge of areas like Blair and Fremont that have had a lot of growth. And what do those things do to the highway system, and really partnering with those DOT partners in a big way. We're going to be talking about TRIPS a lot, but TRIPS is a $2 million award from the U.S. Department of Transportation to really take a close look at our process for prioritizing projects, how we can accelerate project delivery, how we can secure more funding for our members and partners around the region, and really doing that in partnership both with our local government partners and with the state DOTs, and kind of positioning ourselves to both have very strong priorities when funding resources get constrained, and when new resources become available, that we have clear priorities to pursue with our partners. So really excited about that, Court and Carlos and the rest of the transportation team are really digging in this year to kind of deepen that partnership with local governments, really understanding the funding mechanisms that everybody's using to fund infrastructure projects so that we can build out a better set of funding tools and strategies for everybody. So be on the lookout for that. MAPA is supporting an application for EPA brownfields funding with the city of Omaha and the Omaha Inland Port Authority. This is a new economic development tool that the state of Nebraska established and that Omaha opted into. This EPA brownfields fund, we're in the last year of the IIJA funding for that. So it's a great opportunity to really kind of take advantage of it. But it's work that we've been trying to support at the regional level for a long time. And we're excited to have kind of this initial investment from this regional perspective, but then ultimately hopefully building this out into more of a sustainable program for the region. And then one thing of note, with the one big beautiful bill that was passed, the tax bill that was passed last July, new opportunity zones are going to be designated. The program was made permanent, which means that every 10 years, the IRS will be required to kind of redesignate them. There's some census data criteria that go into what's eligible, and ultimately governors select up to 25% of the eligible census tracts to propose to the IRS. So if all the tracts that are eligible, governors can propose a quarter of them, and then those get finally approved by the IRS. So this process is due to the IRS by June, and we think it's a really clear opportunity to have that really close partnership both with our local government partners and economic development partners to put our best foot forward in that. The governors will have, through their departments of economic development or IEDA on the Iowa side, a process for that. But I think there's just a real opportunity to talk about some of these stories that we want to tell, because the administration is also emphasizing that beyond just the tax benefits, that other funding programs like those through transportation funding, through HUD, through EPA, will have criteria related to opportunity zones. So even if you don't have private investors making use of the benefits around capital gains and those primary investments, that other federal funding priorities need to be aligned with this as well. So it's a good opportunity to make sure, kind of back to that TRIPS process, that we're putting our best foot forward and really thinking about presenting those unified priorities to our partners at the state. forgot to take that slide out, but if you missed it, MAPA's COO last month, we hosted the Regional Housing Symposium. We're going to be carrying this work forward into the new year. The Opportunity Zones piece is actually one of those early action items out of that housing symposium. There's new criteria around not just those primary job investments, but also housing and redevelopment opportunities in distressed communities. And so great opportunity to continue some of those conversations. The working groups at that meeting highlighted the importance of taking advantage of those Opportunity Zone designations. I guess I didn't delete that slide. One other thing that I want to just note here, the annual membership survey is now available. We're going to be soliciting input from our members and partners through February 14th. You'll see this note on our budget schedule later here on the agenda, but this is just one of those touch points we have with our members. So if you or your staff want to take this, there's a QR code on the screen there. Otherwise, we're happy to send this out to all the board members as well. Just kind of a good touch point for us, both on things that MAPA might be able to support from kind of a direct service delivery, but then also professional development opportunities. We've been hearing a lot about opportunities for training. We do some elected and appointed officials training. There's some new requirements in Iowa for elected and appointed officials. And so where can we help fill those gaps around traffic safety or whatever the case may be, and just getting that kind of quick touch feedback that supplements what we do on kind of a more recurring basis when we're meeting with community leaders. And Mayor, that is all I have.
Is it? Any questions from me?
Thank you, Liz.
If not, agenda item E is public comments. Now would be the time if anybody wanted to address the board on any issue. Liz, did we have any requests?
No, sir.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. And I'll take all of those in one vote unless you guys decide you'd like to pull something off. Item 1 is our finance committee minutes. Number 2 is our final contract payments. You can see the 3 of them listed there. Number 3 is travel, GIS symposium, where we're sending 2 staff members at about $4,800. And then number 4 is the purchase and our maintenance renewal for an 18-month term totaling $15,600 and change. Does anybody wish to pull any of those off? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Second.
No further questions or discussion? Liz?
Morrison? Yes. Friend?
Yes.
Height?
Yes.
Klug?
Yes.
Rowe?
Yes.
Shay?
Aye.
Shudak?
Yes.
Quinquez? Yes. Kendig?
Yes. Agenda item G is old business. Item number 1 is resolution 2026-08. Our TIP plan amendment number 3. Court?
Good afternoon, everybody. So just kind of briefly, we've got a few new faces on the board. So to give you a brief intro to what the Transportation Improvement Program is, it's a 6-year program of primarily federal aid projects. This is kind of how we move federal transportation dollars through the region. Effectively, this is how we're spending any of those things that come through to us through USDOT. On the agenda today, making a couple of revisions to the document itself. One, we're updating the group project categories. We passed a new Metropolitan Transportation Plan in the fall, and the group project categories that are there are a little different than what we had in the Transportation Improvement Program. And the two plans need to basically talking to each other, I guess is the simplest way to put it. So the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, informs all of the projects that we have in the TIP, and those group project categories kind of link some of the projects between the two. So I'm updating them so that the 2 documents are consistent. And then I also added the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure NEVI formula program into the TIP as a fiscally constrained funding source. Why I did that will become clear as we get into the projects that I'm adding to the TIP. We're adding 6 new projects to the TIP. All of these projects are they're not using funding sources that are controlled by the region. They are either congressionally directed spending or they are funding sources that are controlled by the Nebraska Department of Transportation. One of those projects, the EV station in Gretna, is utilizing that NEVI source of funds. So I'm adding that source. We haven't had it in the TIP before. To my knowledge, we haven't had NDOT spend NEVI funds in the region, but we are now. So I'm adding that as a funding source. But besides that, we're adding 6 projects to the TIP, and all of them are either directed specifically from the federal government or by MDOT. Normally, this kind of an amendment would come with a recommendation, a formal recommendation from our Transportation Technical Advisory Committee. They did not have quorum this month. They didn't express any concerns with the amendment, and staff is recommending approval.
And USDOT?
Yes.
State.
US, oh, well, which part? So a lot of the funding is USDOT funding, but all of these projects are funded either, I guess you could say, directly from the federal government through congressional directed spending. The city of Gretna's 204th Street and Schran Road paving, that was directly from Congress. And then the rest of the projects are their formula funds apportioned to the state of Nebraska, and the state DOT determines how those are spent throughout the state.
We want to see some more stuff for Iowa.
And yes, you'll certainly see some amendments that will include some of those projects. And when we get into developing the next year's TIP, all of the Iowa projects will be in there for review.
I'll go ahead and take these separate. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 1? Motion to approve. There's one for discussion. Liz?
Morrison,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shay, Shudak,
Yes.
Winquist. Yes. Kendrick.
Yes. Agenda number 2 is the resolution 2026-09, 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan Amendment number 1.
So similar to the TIP, we periodically have to amend the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and this, like I said before, informs the Transportation Improvement Program, but it's a longer range document. We're looking out to 2050 with this plan as opposed to 2031 with the TIP. For this amendment, we actually drafted this to this board in in December with a request to open it up for public comment. No public comments were received during the public comment period. Changes from then, when I first submitted it, I don't think I had all of the ID numbers in there. We've got all of those logged now, and I've added 2 projects. When the final version actually went out for this meeting, there was one project addition, which was that NDOT, the EV station in Gretna project. That was added. Subsequently, just over the last few days, I've added an additional project, and I'd like that to be noted in the motion that is made. The city of Omaha is intending to apply for a build grant for USDOT for 84th Street from Harrison to L Street. It's $4 million, intending to construct in 2030. And if you would, if approving, please include that as a note to add to this amendment. It has been included in the resolution. I would just want to make sure that I'm kind of checking all the boxes there.
Questions for Cory? If not, can I have
Make a motion to approve, including the Omaha enforcement project.
Liz?
Morrison,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shay,
Aye.
Shudak,
Yes.
Winquist. Yes. Kendrick.
Yes. Agenda. Thanks, Cory. Agenda item H under new business, item number 1 is election of officers. Mike?
Certainly. So we have, as per MAPA's interlocal requirement, to have a board chair and a board vice chair that are from Nebraska and Iowa respectively. And so we are looking to nominate a new vice chair for the MAPA board. That's graciously. May not remember.
That's okay.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, got mayors now.
There you go.
They're both, Mayor Mayor Angie Winquist has expressed interest in serving as vice chair for the MAPA board. And so with your consent here today, you'll nominate her to do that and to maintain kind of our consistency here with the MAPA board, having that representation from both Iowa and Nebraska.
I move Mayor Andrew Winquist to be vice chair of this board of directors.
Second. Or second. Pike. Jack.
Mike, second that really quick, didn't she? So, any further discussion or other nominations? If not, Liz?
Morrison,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Clue,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shay,
Aye.
Hudak,
Yes.
Winquist, abstain. And Dave.
Yes. We appreciate your service. Yeah, well, she was nominated anyway, right? Yeah, it's,
You know the drill.
Show up.
Number 2 is our 2027 budget, Mike.
Certainly. So one update here just to the FY26 budgets. I'll take these items individually if you don't mind, Mayor, just because they are distinct. For the FY26 budget, one thing that we are always estimating as a part of our budget is our kind of lease expenses. We've been in negotiations with Metro Transit, who is our lessor here for a number of years, just about an update to our lease. Our lease is currently at a much lower rate than it will be when it gets updated. And so we always kind of assume mid-year we'll have that new lease agreement and the cost will go up. That hasn't happened. And so what we are doing here with this change to our current budget is showing the lower lease rate for the remaining part of the year and moving those costs to the capital lease because it will be for a full year long. So for the financial statements purposes, because it's a year-long lease, it becomes a capital expense rather than just an operating expense. So to that end, that is what that FY26 budget change is. It doesn't change materially the budget, except that we are assuming kind of the existing lease rate continuing for the remainder of the year.
Mike, can you explain it the opposite of how it's written?
Oh.
I mean, at least
Did I
that's
miss
how I
it?
interpreted that.
Did I miss that, Matt?
I'm sorry, I was
Oh.
deep in email thought to the auditors.
Yes.
So it's going from capital.
From capital outlay, from capital, yeah, I did explain it backwards. From capital outlays to office expenses to accommodate the office lease budget. Yes, sorry.
Right.
Because the new lease agreement would have been for another, would have been
We
for
were
a full.
expecting to go
Excuse
in
me,
long
yes.
term somewhere this year, so I budgeted for long term, which has to be capitalized. That's not gonna happen, so I just need to move it out. Back to the,
Apologies.
How much is it now and how much is it in the future?
So currently, we pay a per square foot price for this space. I believe it's I'm gonna mess this up. I think it's around $15 or $16 a square foot. It was several years ago when we negotiated the rate. Because this building has federal participation from FTA, they have to approve the uses and the leases for this space. That has been a slow approval process. And so the higher negotiated rate was around $18.50 per square foot, which was based on other real estate. It's probably 5 years ago now at this point that we started this process. So that is currently the rate that we are operating and budgeting under, but we have not revisited those conversations. Metro has not let us know that FTA has approved that use, and so we are at the lower rate currently at
What's the
15.
total?
The total for the year,
is about 72,000 and some change.
Thank you.
6,000, a little over 6,000 a month.
Yeah.
You don't anticipate they'll ask for back rent when FTA.
well, they wouldn't have an agreement to
Okay.
that point. So we are month to month technically right now,
Got
which they are happy to have us. We are happy to have the lower rate for now. All right. Thanks for that clarification, Jacqueline.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take one vote on all of these, let you guys, even though we say them separate, we can pull it out if you don't want to.
Okay, so the next item here is our FY27 budget schedule. So we are entering budget time, as many of you are wrapping up some of your budget. MAPA is starting our budget as we execute from a July 1 to a June 30th timeframe. And each year we present this budget schedule monthly just to kind of show you the status of things as we tick them off. And notably here in January, the next item on the agenda is our county dues request. So MAPA as an interlocal organization, The counties pay a per capita dues rate that supports MAPA's kind of general operations and is also used as matching funds for many of our federal funding programs. And we approved that rate here early in January to kind of set one of the parameters for our budget. In February, we get many of our targets from our federal partners, and we bring that back to this board for a preliminary budget in March. That preliminary budget also includes our draft work program, which is due to our DOT partners by April 1. And then we take a little bit of a hiatus until May, where we come back and approve both our final budgets with all the detail, the line item budget, funds budget, all of those things, and our final work program, which is due to our DOT partners in June. So that DOT work program really covers the portion of our budget that is funded by U.S. Department of Transportation. It also includes a number of different things that we do in service to our members. So these are pass-through contracts, things like our NIROC aerial photography project. That's a joint purchase that we use to support the match for our transportation programs, in addition to larger scale projects like the freight plan, like the TRIPS project. So you'll see a whole narrative around that in the budget that reflects that. It's a large and substantial portion of our budget, but we also have the other side of our house that we take through. Ultimately then in June, that goes to our council of officials who approves that. A board of directors then also looks in June at our strategic plan for the year, kind of looking ahead, revising those kind of key work items that MAPA staff will be working on with the approved budget. And then in July, we really just start executing. So all the MOUs for those pass-through agreements, all the other work and planning work that was authorized by this board. So that is the budget schedule. And so on today's agenda then for the January meeting is the county dues request. And so Christine, if you want to scroll down to the next item here.
Mike, can I
Yes,
just,
ma'am.
thinking about when I first started sitting in the seat, there were a lot of acronyms.
Yes.
I didn't always know. So there's 2 acronyms on that prior,
Mhm.
TTAC and RPAC, I believe is up there.
Sure.
Can you just touch, and then it's the finance committee, can you just touch a little
Yeah.
bit on what's RPAC, what's TTAC, and then how you choose the finance committee, what they do? And looks like we're running a little ahead of time, so hopefully.
Yeah, you
I'm
got
not
time.
Slowing us down too much,
No, you're
Mayor,
fine.
but I do think that's
Yeah.
helpful just for people to understand what everything is.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, organizationally at the highest level, MAPA is organized around our council of officials. That is one elected or appointed official from each of our members. So that includes, all of the cities, all of the counties, boards, and special purpose units of government, like our partners at, OPPD or at the housing authorities would be a good example of other folks that are a part of that. So that council of officials then designates through the interlocal agreement the membership of this board. So we have 7 ex officio members, and then we have 2 small communities representatives, Mayor Kindig and Mayor Winquist, our 2 Nebraska and Iowa small communities representatives. But then below that, we have a lot of engagement with staff. And so those committees are what we call our advisory committees. So to Jacqueline's point, the Regional Planning Advisory Committee includes a lot of city staff, county staff, kind of a cross-sectoral grouping of folks from the nonprofit sector, from philanthropy, and from economic development organizations. And so it's really looking out and really kind of, we see them as the stewards of work like Heartland 2050 and some of our regional long-range planning in cultivating some of those ideas. The other side of the house, specific to the transportation planning, is our Transportation Technical Advisory Committee. And so that is comprised of, again, mostly local staff, state staff from the DOT partners, FHWA, FTA, and those partners that are really critical to overseeing what we do as a metropolitan planning organization and many of the things that Court just highlighted on this coordinated continuous process that we have with partners both at the local level, the state level, and the federal level to ensure that federal transportation funds are spent wisely and they're prioritized based on the priorities of local officials like yourselves. So when we take items to the board of directors that are fiscal in nature or financial in nature, we have administrative policies that dictate certain contract thresholds for our finance committee. Finance committee, based on MAPA's interlocal, has members from all 6 of MAPA's dues-paying counties. So the finance committee is different than the board of directors, but finance committee approves things for the board of directors. So most things that you see here, like you saw on the consent agenda, things that fall within their threshold, you see and accept as part of the consent agenda, or things that are largely, I guess, I'm looking for the right word, I can't think of the right word, things that are sort of normal run of the business, normal MAPA operations that don't involve new contracting or other things like that, that we always put in front of the board of directors. So that's really important to us. So when we go through the budget process, we take very deep dive with the finance committee, talking about structurally where MAPA is and kind of the model and decisions. So this county dues request comes with a favorable recommendation from the finance committee. But other things like our work program, the projects that we're investing in, our partnership with communities, planning projects that we support, funding decisions that we make in partnership with those local governments and state partners, those come through our advisory committee. So you'll see recommendations like Court alluded to from TTAC. You'll see infrequent recommendations from RPAC. But generally, we look to them, those peers that we have kind of within member agencies like the ones you all lead, as really kind of key parts and touch points in our planning process. Did I do that justice?
Amazing.
Oh, okay. I'll take amazing. I'll take amazing. So burying the lead, the county funding dues request here. We've been holding this flat for a number of years, largely because we have a lot of sort of, I would say, moving pieces. I highlighted in kind of the state legislatures, we're always a little bit unsure where we're going to end up in terms of that state support. In general, it's been pretty consistent, but it has ebbed and flowed a little bit in recent years. And so to really kind of manage that and to really recognize all of the funding challenges that you are all facing through the legislature, we've held this flat over a number of years. I would note, as we get into the next probably year or two of budgeting, we're going to really want to take a closer look at this as things stabilize. We'll have a new infrastructure bill. Hopefully we'll have some sort of long-term understanding of state funding, or at least beyond, kind of year to year understanding where that fits in. But ultimately this year, we're recommending that for FY27, that per capita dues rate remains flat. And again, that's kind of one anchor that we use in terms of our budgeting process. We then look to our state and federal partners for the targets for the upcoming year. We use that to build out the budget for the remainder of the year. That'll come to you both in a draft in March and then final in May. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions on any of those items? If not, I would take a motion to approve all the items under number 2.
So moved.
No further questions? Liz?
Morrison,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Height,
Yes.
Clute,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shay,
Aye.
Hudak,
Aye.
Winquist, yes, Kennedy.
Yes. Agenda or number 3 under new business contracts, grants, task orders. I am going to take these separately. Number A, Eagle View agreement. The amendment is for $953,000, $687,000. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so Pictometry or Eagle View, they go by a number of different names. This is the contractor we use to collect aerial photography through our NIROC project. So to give you one more acronym, it's Nebraska Iowa Regional Orthophotography Consortium. Largely, it's a joint purchase contract that MAPA leads to support really kind of up-to-date aerial photography and imagery for our local government partners. So over the last couple of years, we've had all 6 MAPA counties participating in addition to Lancaster County and Lincoln. And in some ways, it's just administratively easier for some of our member governments to use a contract with MAPA to support this than, trying to, negotiate this in an annual budget cycle. They can just kind of plan on the support. But each year we go and we actually tweak those deliverables. So we have a 6-year contract with Pictometry. We say, here's generally what we expect to need in terms of aerial imagery, but then each year those local government partners tell us very specifically what they need. We go in and we update this contract with Eagle View to support that, and then get all of those matching fund agreements from our local partners to actually go and purchase this. Importantly, this is really a pass-through contract for MAPA. So each dollar that is spent on Pictometry comes from a local government partner or a contributing partner to this effort. So we have partners like OPPD and MUD and the Omaha Airport Authority that contribute just to the jurisdictions in which they serve. And then other jurisdictions like Omaha and Douglas County split it out in a number of different ways to kind of support having this information, which is incredibly important to many departments, including planning, the assessors, public works, other county engineers and others that use it routinely. So this contract is for the flights that will commence in March of this year for a total of $953,687.
Any questions for Mike?
I think we've done our own public
years ago, did we go through you?
You go through us.
Okay.
So that line item that Jamie puts in the budget each year is his share, his kind of portion of this. And that's an important piece. Part of what we do provide, and it creates, we'll get into this when we get to the budget, but more fully, we do have, sort of, I would say, very favorable payment terms for some of our members in terms of giving folks the ability to kind of match up their ability to pay for these things over multiple fiscal years. It creates a little bit of a headache for us, but it's also a good tool for us in terms of being able to use the funds that are contributed by our member agencies that they would spend otherwise as additional match for our transportation fund. So we can spend federal dollars without additional dollars coming from all of you.
Are you doing the 3D?
Yeah, so the oblique and oblique is kind of the bird's eye view, and then the oblique photography imagery is the actual straight down view. So they do both of them.
It has saved our planning and zoning a lot of time and money. They can really look at things.
Yeah. Well, and we've heard too, just back to the legislative updates, there was an attorney general's decision last year in Nebraska that limited the ability for county assessors and staff to enter properties for the purposes of valuation. And almost instantly after that came out, we had a lot of interest to make sure that those counties were going to be a part of this, because the software that's behind this, the change finder and other things, are really important to ensuring that people have paid and pulled the appropriate permits and that the valuations are up to date and accurate. So there's kind of a circular piece here with just how important this is to county governments, and there's some legislative proposals about changing that legal status for assessor staff. But it's a good example of just how this sort of continuous process that MAPA supports is important to local government. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Mike, is when in 23, when this contract was put in place, was there an RFP? I mean, did Eagle View have to go through a process?
Yes, they did. And I believe we had 2 respondents. There's, I would say the few, actually, did we have 2 or 3? I'm trying to remember. We had 2 or 3, I can't recall, but there's a couple of companies. Oh, we had 3 now that I'm remembering. So there's Pictometry Eagle View is a very long-standing partner. They've held this contract for a long time with us, but we do it in 6-year terms generally. And that really meets the cadence of some communities that want to get photography every year, some communities that want to get photography every 2 years, and some that want to get it every 3 years. And so we're able to kind of meet all of those expectations with a 6-year contract. But yes, we do compete it. There was another contractor, the cost structure, the software tools weren't exactly comparable. And so the local government members that really are contributing to this decided to go with Eagle View. But it is something that we do competitively procure outside of each contract, not annually, but for that 6-year period.
Thanks. Anything else? If not, Liz, I'll take the vote on this.
I need a motion and a second.
Second. Thanks, guys.
Morrison,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shay,
Aye.
Shudak,
Aye.
Winquist,
Yes.
Kinde.
Yes. Under number B, it's a resolution for 2026 for HER Engineering on-call professional service. Carlos, I will let you take it over.
Okay, this is a contract between MAPA and HDR to conduct our first comprehensive regional freight plan. By this, we're looking at Douglas, Sarpy County on the Nebraska side, and the urbanized area on the Potawatomi side. We're gonna look at all modes of freight, whether that's truck, rail, air, and barge, and look at the current and future implications. Hopefully, do some rounds of focus groups and better understanding from trucking industry or other industry members, leaders within the region to understand their critical concerns and their future potential within the region. This is just the contract to get all this started for a total of $355,132.77. And if you have any more questions.
Do we put an RFP out for that?
Yeah, Carlos, do you want to talk about the on-call planning?
So this year, as part of our administrative excellence, we went into RFP where we were contacted by 12 different planning firms to do a list of different planning and engineering studies that we normally take on as an agency. We have pre-approved 5 firms to do work for the next 3 years. HDR is one of those firms. So in the next 3 years, we're going to use any of these 5 firms to conduct work within the region, the TMA region. This is mainly for our Heartland 2050 grants. So if you're familiar with some of our, the bike ped plan for the city of Omaha, the bike ped plan for Douglas County and Bennington, Valleys, intersection projects, those are all gonna go through this on-call. So rather than having to do an RFP for every single contract, we have a bench of qualified consultants that we can pick from and do work. This is hopefully saving our lead time from 9 to 12 months of doing RFPs to 3 or less months. So it gets us going faster. That is what we're hoping to do. We're trying to do that, and we'll see how this first year goes.
And I would say importantly, when we did that RFP, we had a list of, really 8 or 10 projects that we knew were coming in that 3-year period, and we were able to match those firms and their expertise against those things that we could anticipate, and then we have more kind of general expertise for things that our communities apply to us for funding. So, as Carlos alluded to, a lot of interest in active mobility plans, safety plans, small engineering studies, corridor studies, things that we've done traditionally, and making sure that we have a bench of consultants that we have into that. But as Carlos alluded to, normally when we do these, it's it's probably 7 to 9 months from us sitting down with the community and them telling us they're ready to go before we're ready to contract start, and this really helps us accelerate that.
Anything else? If not, can I have a motion to approve? So moved.
Second.
Sorry, second.
Shoot.
Okay.
With no further discussion, Liz?
Morrison,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Height, Booth,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Shay,
Aye.
Shudak,
Aye.
Whitehead, yes.
Yes. Under number 4 is the federal safety performance major targets. Jim, give us an update.
Certainly. Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Jim Borner. I'm a transportation planner on the team here. I come to this by to talk performance measures. This is one of 3 federal performance measures that we track. And this one's really unique. So I'll give a real quick background. I'll spell out my acronyms and hopefully have everybody up to speed. So in MAP 21, the federal government set a requirement that states establish transportation performance metrics, safety being the first one, pavement and bridge condition being the second, and truck and travel time reliability being the third. MAPA at that time chose as a metropolitan planning organization to establish our own targets for our region because we realized that we're different than Nebraska and Iowa as a whole. And we wanted to give all of our members an opportunity to take advantage of that. That was very fortuitous with a Safe Streets and Roads for All funding that came out of our most recent transportation bill, which we were able to take advantage of, developed a comprehensive safety action plan to hopefully address the issues that I'm going to highlight to you here today. So we have a MAPA safety committee that was developed, that was stood up just for the purpose of reviewing and providing some expertise outside of our transportation technical advisory committee. That group met the first week of January. Our TTAC did meet last week. They didn't have a quorum, so they weren't able to give a formal recommendation, but I'll tell you, we talked about this for probably a good 45 minutes. So there's interest and concern from the members, and we want to work together on this to turn it the other way. So we've set policy-based targets. I'll go through those briefly, but you as a board have committed to supporting all of our member jurisdictions to get to 0 fatalities and serious injuries by 2040. And so you'll see those dots on the map in some areas where we're making progress and some areas where we have some work to do. When we talk rates, that's per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So that's a rate as a measure of volume of traffic. And that it kind of sets a standard. It's a really standard engineering practice to kind of describe when you have different populations in different areas that you're reviewing. Really quickly on the bar charts, I'll talk to the first one, the others will follow. The bars themselves are the actual number of in this case, fatalities, the first of our 5 measures. As you'll note right away, 2024, the highest number of fatalities in our region since we started tracking and measuring this in 2006. A pretty significant change even from the COVID period. Uniquely, most states and regions have seen fatalities go down since COVID. So we're not in that group, unfortunately. So that's 80 fatalities in our region in 2024. The follow on, the dot and the star, the targets that we set are for 2 years from now. So we're baseline of 2024 setting targets for 2026 with a midpoint in 2025. So a lot of work to do. That second rate, fatality rate, kind of talks towards trends towards traffic volumes. So we do every 2 years update a traffic report. The EMT measures that we're talking about in 2024 are an estimate from that. But as you'll note, it's still rising. So we're not just seeing more fatalities because we have more traffic. We're seeing more fatalities because we're seeing crashes that result in those fatalities. So work to do here as well. I should note, and I didn't say it on my first slide, the measure itself is a 5-year rolling average. So the individual bars will move and change over time. That 5-year average kind of smooths things out since we are talking a statistical occurrence. Serious injuries has always been a better nationwide, statewide. We see these outcomes are better. Oftentimes it's because the car is more capable of protecting the person inside of it. The challenge is we see a lot of our crashes recently have been people that aren't in cars. So what we're seeing, some things improve. There are things to pull out of that serious injury and who those serious injuries are occurring to, and then we'll kind of get to that in the last slide. This is a measure that was always on track. This was positive, and we still generally are on a path to zero by 2040. And same with that serious injury rate. All right, finally, and most concerning, so non-motorists, pedestrians and bicyclists is generally how this comes out. Each state has a different way of classifying. Non-motorists, we saw our second worst year. I would note that's overall numbers in fatal or serious injuries, but also it was by far the largest number of fatalities that we had seen in our region. 20 fatalities of those 78. Making 1 out of 4 people killed last year being a non-motorist in our region. So we report these at the state level. If they didn't meet their targets, there would be penalties assigned. Those penalties are basically stating they would have to use their funding provided to the state by the federal government in highway safety improvement program funds. They would have to use those all towards safety projects. But this is a useful tool for us to communicate with our partners and to look for additional funding, especially for areas of greatest need. Very quickly, we were better than baseline, which showed we were improving for the bottom 3 measures, but only in 1 instance did we meet our targets in 2024. Okay, so finally, our targets, and these are the numbers that are listed in the resolution itself. Again, reflecting kind of that policy-based target setting, would be recommended for approval, reviewed by the MAPA Safety Committee. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on the target setting process.
Are bike lanes helping?
So that non-motorist, we didn't have a rate there, and that's because we don't have kind of that traffic counting, which is integral. So it's hard to tell. Are more people traveling? You know, are we seeing more non-motorists because more people are choosing to travel, and so there's greater exposure, or are there just more of these crashes that are happening? I think I wouldn't give you a specific, but I think providing bike lanes, in particular, changing roadways such that they cater to all users, things like a lane reconfiguration, for example, taking a 4-lane undivided, making it 3-lane with that center turn lane, reducing the number of conflicts, kind of giving everybody their own space. Yes, that they are a proven safety countermeasure at the national level, and I think we do see success. Individual bike lanes and where they're put, I think, takes a lot more coordination, and I guess I'll go back to what was mentioned initially. The active mobility plans that Carlos talked about, I think, are a really big win for our region, and I think individual communities are seeing benefits. But I think it would depend upon the type of countermeasure, where it's being put, and driver willingness to follow the rules. And bicycles, for that matter. Yes.
Couple of questions. One, I know that this shows 2024 numbers, but if I remember correctly, 2025 was pretty bad too. And so we put that number in, we will not have met the 2025 benchmark. So I'm just curious, when you're looking at a target for 2026, and you know that we didn't need it in 24 and 25, I think was worse than 24, does it make, when we say we're gonna have our target be less, have we made the improvements to actually meet the target being less?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So our safety committee, we brought in state partners, we brought in safety engineers from both Nebraska and Iowa Department of Transportation. Talk, what are the funding resources? We don't have enough resources, basically. We don't have established funding to get at these safety projects. We've identified them now in our comprehensive safety action plan, and it comes down to finding a way to implement. And some of them are infrastructure related, some of them are policy, some of them are, you know, just different things that could be done at the state level with enforcement. I think the city of Omaha is a perfect example. You found the way to get $13 million more for safety projects through that comprehensive safety action plan and your Vision Zero action plan that are proven countermeasures that can address needs that we see. But as far as target setting, yeah, you're right. The state of Nebraska, there's a special rule for non-motorists that says if 15% of your fatalities across the state are non-motorists, then you have to spend 15% of your highway safety improvement fund. So for Nebraska, that would be saying we're going to take $4 million out of $21 million and put it just towards non-motorists. And we don't really have the systems in place to go and identify and to put in place those projects. So that is part of what we're working with TTAC, and a lot of that discussion was how do we do things different? How do we respond to the things that we're seeing?
I have one more question. If we know that the number of traffic fatalities in non-motorists is a high number, we are doing a lot of work at the city of Omaha as we talk about density and also walkability and just making sure that people are able to walk and bike to work and not take cars. And we're putting a lot of focus on that. So I'm just curious if that's where we're going as a city, but then I shouldn't say going, but if that's a priority of the cities, and we know that we have these fatalities, I'm just wondering, is it possible that the fatalities going up are connected to more people actually walking and biking? Because there's just more opportunity if you have more people doing those things. Like, do we need to be thinking about that all together? And are there conversations happening? Like, I guess my question is it possible that the number is going up because you have more people on the roadways walking and biking than did before?
It definitely is. For non-motorists, kind of a three-part, but the one part there is exposure. So as you have more exposure, there's a higher likelihood just a bicyclist and a pedestrian getting hit, that they're much more likely to suffer a fatal or severe injury, even at lower speeds. So you broaden out that area of where you might have a fender bender if it's between two vehicles. Now you have, but I think there are communities that have shown the ability to kind of do both. And I think that's the aspiration. Again, the speed management plan, which you found, Safe Streets and Roads for All funding is a part of that. We are working with city staff on even just measuring that same, where are these areas you put in some treatments. We're saying what have we seen? We've seen speeds go down in the areas where you put in place treatments that you would hope to have those speeds be reduced. But the longer term is what's the impact to fatal and serious injuries in particular.
Jim, it might be worth just on that note, briefing them a little bit about some of that context from the Department of Transportation partners and some of what they're seeing around distracted driving, particularly like on the interstate, and how some of those interstate crashes get counted in this as well.
Yeah, so of that 15% of fatalities that they are across the state in the state of Nebraska, many of them are people getting out of the vehicle on the interstate. Some of them are, what is counted as a fatality is something that not only happens and that the law enforcement responds to, but then subsequently is deemed to be accidental is the term they use in that coroner reporting. So first of all, you'll see things in the news that may sound like, hey, a bicyclist got hit by a car and it was a fatality. And further look might say, well, it was really a powered vehicle, right? It was some kind of electric or gas powered motorcycle. So this changes the nature of the crash, but I think we need to work with a lot more people and to better understand it. So we're working with Department of Health and Human Services, for example, to understand and take a collective look at that. Reporting is also important about emergency responders. So I think we're just trying to get a better sense. But yeah, 2025 was not a good year, and we can't say with any certainty, how can we change those outcomes for each individual. But I think there's some good recommendations in the action plan itself and the projects that are being put forward, especially some quick build, would hopefully balance out that increase in people biking and walking and being able to put in infrastructure changes or policy changes that would keep them as safe as possible.
Yeah, and I guess to expand a little bit more on that, like what Jim is trying to allude to is not just bike and ped. Some of these vulnerable road users are public works workers that are out there fixing the roads, or police officers writing citations. Those have also been included in some of these vulnerable road user crashes. Obviously, we can't do everything, but it is one of the puzzles and pieces that we're trying to navigate and understand further through data and information, but also looking with our different partners and agencies on what we can do to prevent, right? Additional safety training for our public works workers that are out in the field, additional training for our police officers that are constantly out there. And so it's going to take a lot more than just fixing up some of the infrastructure. It's going to take additional work with safety and safety training. What are the training mechanisms that we currently have in place? How do we enhance that? It's going to take some policies for some of these. Maybe your city or community wants to enhance that. And that would be affirming that all your fleets have a speed limit indicator. So there are a bunch of different things that we can do. A lot more work ahead of us. We've spent more than 50 years trying to get to the road networks that we have today. Now we're trying to protect some of the more vulnerable users that use those roadways.
And I think, go ahead, Mayor.
Oh, is there an educational piece to the public from the driver's perspective where we're seeing more people using bike lanes, walk lanes? We also need to educate the drivers on a daily basis that you're gonna start to see more of these people. They have the right of way here. This is how we work. And so then I'm sure there's an educational piece there towards that.
Not yet. Like I said, we want additional funding to work on that.
Yeah.
Traditionally, the funding we are in charge of has been very infrastructure based. And so now we're also realizing there are other needs besides infrastructure that we need to enhance. And that's going to take a lot of partnerships, a lot of new ways to generate additional funds through discretionary grants when we can. And our staff, my staff specifically, is willing to work with any agency that wants to come to us. We are happy to help navigate some of these funding sources and help you become successful. I think the example from the city of Omaha for the $13 million, some of that work came out of our comprehensive safety action plan. We're looking to do more. Have your public works and planning departments come to us. We're happy to help.
Yeah, and as Carlos and Jim alluded to, and back to your point, Jacqueline, like the the comprehensive safety action plan that this board approved last year, it included, really detailed evidence-based prioritization of projects and areas and how we can put our best foot forward, competing for funding and using our own resources efficiently to address these issues. It also had a huge list of policy recommendations, both at the local and the state level. And, being a bi-state organization, we see, in a lot of ways, the fragmentation of some of the approaches to this with, helmet laws in one state, not in another. We see, primary enforcement of everything from seatbelt use to, mobile phone use, differing in between states, automated enforcement tools, all this toolbox, we are in a lot of ways, as this region, a microcosm of, wow, there's a lot of work to do in a lot of different places. But, when we talk about traffic safety in that legislative agenda, you see kind of a thread through things like the move over slow down bills that were passed in both states, being expanded not just to law enforcement, but then to people, maintenance workers and things like that. And then you see hands-free bill in Iowa and some of the early success that they've seen with that through Iowa DOT, similar proposals in Nebraska, automated enforcement in Iowa, similar proposals in Nebraska. So there's, it's a long game. I would just say, the progress isn't going to be linear, even though we show a linear trend. It is going to ebb and flow. But I think one of the things that excites us about this work, and even back to some of the things I highlighted with the Regional Planning Advisory Committee and this kind of cross-sectoral focus, the safe systems approach that Omaha has tapped into with Vision Zero and MAPA's done through our comprehensive safety action plan. It includes infrastructure, it includes education, it includes mental health and the substance abuse disorders of people, drunk and drugged driving so many of our fatal and serious injury crashes. It's really a holistic approach, and it's not things that we're going to lead, but we need to make sure that each of the partners in those areas sees their role in shaping this very tangible outcome that this board is a steward of. So it's something that we're committed to. Carlos' staff is doing a great job of leading these efforts here at the regional level, but it's important, but it's going to take a while.
Just one thing, Jim. Do you guys track, I'm sure you do, but the number of pedestrian accidents that would have been the pedestrian's responsibility compared to the vehicle responsibility?
Yeah, there are contributing circumstances that are logged by law enforcement that do go in, and that is part of our crash data set.
Maybe at a future, I'm not gonna ask you to go over each day and stuff, but that, and then I'm sure you also track where that accident happened. Are there hot spots that you have multiple? I guess I would like to see that. And then I think Mike Lute, I was gonna ask, what are we doing legislatively? You don't have to be an expert to know that people are texting and driving, and is there a push to tighten those laws, and does the penalty make bigger? Because I think, you mentioned about educating the drivers and stuff. I'm sorry, sometimes the only way to educate is with the stick penalty.
No, I agree.
Driver's education is required.
Yeah, absolutely. We can come back to you at a future meeting with that data. But to the primary enforcement of the hands-free in Iowa, they had 100 fewer deaths last year. They typically have around 350 or 360. They almost had fewer than Nebraska. So, is somebody done the science and says it's all to that? But I think it's a very focused program in education up front, communicating it very clearly. Who's the priority? It came from the top down. And then they gave a lot of warnings and said, okay, after this date, it's not a warning anymore.
6 months, 11,000 warnings.
So I think it was communicated very clearly, and hopefully if something is that effective in Iowa, if it were to become a law in Nebraska, it could be as effective here.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So you may have addressed this. What are our population growth and infrastructure growth metrics factored into the targets? And what I mean by that is, if you take Sarpy, which has had over the last 20 years the most explosive growth in the state of Nebraska, in a state of 2 million people, Sarpy is far exceeding those measurements. Then you take Douglas, you take Potawatomi, you take Lancaster. Let's take it out. Lancaster is an outlier. outlier. Our numbers are technically going down, but the growth measures and the infrastructure's increasing. Are those factored in?
So indirectly through BMT, through these measures, but when USDOT had a supply for our Safe Streets funding, that was done as a per population number. So yeah, to your point, as we have more drivers and drivers drive further, that's more exposure, but you would also say maybe if we're doing that more safely, then we're okay, even if we're still seeing those outcomes. Number of fatalities and serious injuries by population was something we looked at, and our growth patterns are very different, but it's as a population basis too, and you don't want to think about it negatively like this, but the US DOT has kind of set a threshold now for high fatality levels, so about 17.5 fatalities, I think, per 100,000. And so, yeah, there is that's another rate, another measurement. I think, you know, I'd give a couple examples with our growth and things that our members have done with the Western Sarpy Transportation Enhancement Plan. We said we need to get ahead of this from a transportation perspective, but it's transportation responding to development, not being done ahead of time. But it's everything from how do we just make sure the sidewalks line up, they're done to the same standard. You don't have to cross a road to get to the trail on the other side, you know. So I think those members have seen the value of doing that. Sarpy County and Gretna, Papillion, you know, Springfield, seeing that growth. I think we're seeing it in comprehensive plans too. I think a lot of jurisdictions are pulling that in and seeing the value. But I think coming back to your point, Jacqueline, those aren't things that as a community necessarily we're wanting to do. I think what people are saying and to keep the workers that we want to have or attract the ones that we don't have, those are qualities that they're looking for in our communities. So we're going to have that to contend with regardless. I think it's just being proactive. But yes, I think we indirectly do that through our travel demand modeling and our forecasting does look at traffic as a response to kind of the change in population and the way that we develop across our region.
I think one way to think about it, Commissioner, you know, each year across the region, we have about, you know, kind of 1 to 3% population growth, depending, you know, kind of annually where you look around. And when we do our traffic report every 2 years, we see 1 to 3%, you know, traffic growth around the region in different areas. And so they're correlated really strongly in that sense. And so that denominator in all of these rates that Jim highlighted reflects that kind of increasing growth. It doesn't capture it in that sort of raw number of fatalities, as Jim alluded to, or the serious injuries or the non-motorist number, but those rates are indexed to that growth in that indirect way.
Right, it's good to hear that. I would just add, every time the Sarpy County engineer, every time the Douglas County engineer knows that Celebrity Homes or anybody else is putting a 300 unit housing structures in to a specific area, there's more blacktop. When there's more blacktop, there's people out there 20 years old, 25 years old, driving like that. And there's a lot more going east, west, north, south, whatever the case may be. So as long as those are factored in as well, you know, the numbers don't scare me when you consider the numbers in Sarpy County, which scare me. The growth numbers scare me, and just from a safety standpoint. So.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it in our Western Douglas County things. You go west of 156th Street and north of Ida, that's where 85% of the growth in the county is. So you're getting your hands wrapped around that, and the sheriff's department is absolutely, they're like, how do we get our hands?
Yeah, it is definitely a challenge. And I mean, as Jim and Carlos alluded to, you know, just keeping up with the pace of infrastructure to match the development is one thing. Having the foresight to build, you know, systemic safety into that at the time that you need it, and not having, you know, issues that persist for 10, 15, 20 years is a big challenge. And that, I think, was really a testament to the local partners, and WeStep in particular. Of they knew that growth was coming, and they built that systemic safety into it from the ground up. So each of those development decisions, those concessions by developers to contribute to roadway infrastructure along the way, is done with that in mind. And so I think there's models for it, but, you know, all of that is constrained by the local revenue, which, you know, we understand is a challenge, and why we're doing trips. So just a full circle.
Yeah, I didn't mean to pick on 22-year-old.
No, you should. They are driving
There's some
crazy.
bad, there's some bad.
You should, we can give you a dashboard. We can give you a dashboard that shows the dangerous behavior of young people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, very good information. And I know you've got so much more.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And it's such a big problem, like Carlos said, it's like you have to attack it, but like where do you start almost, and then how does it tie together? I'm sitting there thinking, you guys are the experts, but it's like, you know, when we do driver's training, you know, when they're 15 years old, or they get hard, there should be requirements that they have to go over things and that type of stuff, because it is a generational change, and I'm afraid that you were right, you can pick on whoever you want, at what age, but you know, people think it's okay to text and drive, and it's obviously, you just don't know. And the other thing is, we just had second for sure, and probably a third fatality at 72nd Harrison, sure, I don't say anything wrong, but I think there's drivers out there that have already got, let's say, multiple tickets, along with not just speeding, but you know, just not good driving and everything. They're not getting the message, and they continue to drive that way, and then they cause an accident. And so you've got to, maybe that's where I talk about the penalties, got to be stiffer, and maybe, I don't know, do we even use the point system in Nebraska anymore? I don't know, I better knock on wood, because I haven't got any points for a really long time, but you know, that's the stuff that we've got to look at the very base, and that's only one part of 100 that it's going to take. So your job is safe, Carlos.
A lot of work.
All right. Did you need a motion? You don't need a motion. Do you need a motion to accept your report?
Yes.
Okay.
Request.
Got a motion and a second?
Yep.
Okay. Liz?
Morrison.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Pike.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Shay. Shudak.
Yes.
Winquist. Yes. Campbell.
Yes. Does anyone have anything else to discuss or any additional business that they'd like to bring forth? If not, that was a good meeting, a lot of really good information and stuff. Real quick update, I talked to Christina before the meeting. We do Mike's review. We're gonna try to get it done on time this year, so that Matt can get it put in the budget.
Sure you will.
We are gonna try to do that. Right now, we're gonna put together the committee that actually does it. You're gracious serving as vice chair, you'll be on that. We'll include someone from the finance committee, and then we'll probably include the president of the council officials, who may be the same person. But what I would tell this board is we put it together. If you've got any concerns, issues, or accolades, please reach out to myself or even Christina. We'll start doing that over the next 2 months so that we can have it ready for Matt's budget. And but I just wanted to mention that today. So we will not probably be doing 360 this year. We did last year. I don't think it needs to be done every single year. But I was told today you have a new software that has absolutely great input from all of the managers and everything. So we'll be using that in the future. But anyway, wanted to give an update on that. If there's nothing else, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Everybody have a safe drive home.
Thank you.
See you.